Welcome to the Freedom and Prosperity Podcast with your host, Desi Arnaz. Join us as we explore the journeys of top achievers who share strategies and stories about their success and living life on their own terms. Get ready to be inspired.
Hey guys, welcome back. I am Desi Arnaz and I'm the host of the Freedom and Prosperity Podcast. I'm really excited today to be interviewing another guest that just has such a phenomenal story to share. When I read through this gentleman's, through his bio, I was like, whoa, this guy is so credentialed in so many areas, but yet at the same time, you're going to find he's going to be a lot of fun too. I can tell just from my pre-podcast interview with him, this is going to be fun. You guys are going to love it. His background is very different than anything I've seen in a long time. He's actually an engineer. His name is Dr. Fogel. Dr. David Fogel. And he's actually an engineer, recognized as a scientist. He's a recognized scientist, speaker, engineer. Typically, you don't see all those three things together. So that makes him very unique. But he's also authored some books, 10 books. 10 books. I thought I did something when I authored my first. Good for you, David.
The first is the hardest.
Yeah, you got to start.
Yeah.
And but here's the big deal, guys. He's a professional musician as well and composer. David, I mean, an engineer, completely left brain stuff, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Musician, completely right brain stuff. So
there's some left brain in there too.
There's some left brain in there.
There is.
Okay.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, I mean, we need for those who know music theory and how the language of music is constructed. You know, music is a language. You're speaking in notes, musical phrases, rhythms. Maybe you're just banging trash cans, whatever it is that you're doing, but you're doing it in a way that's trying to convey some meaning to somebody else. So it's not all, let's say, just on the creative side. There's some rules you have to follow, otherwise people don't know how to interpret the language that you're speaking, you know.
Love it.
There is a rule set, and the better you get, I guess it is, the better you know the rules. And then it's either Miles Davis or John Coltrane or one of those guys said, learn the rules and then forget them. So I don't know that I'm quite there yet to forget them, but that's the goal and aspiration anyway.
Yeah. So what's your story? I mean, I haven't met very many people that have such a diverse interest as you.
Well, you know, much of success comes from others, and in this case, my parents. So both my dad and mom. My dad died in 2007. My mom's still with us, but both of them have been an inspiration to me, continue to be. My dad was an engineer himself, had his PhD in engineering back in 1964, and was one of the pioneers in artificial intelligence in the 1960s, came up with an idea of simulating evolution on computers to help them learn how to solve problems that we didn't know how to solve. And if you think about, like, that sounds pretty cool, like it's kind of commonplace now, I guess, but
yeah,
back in the 60s, you know, the computer maybe he was using, I think it was called an IBM 704 or something like that, as big as a regular room, like a living room, and it had no hard drive, and you just, you know, you can't even fathom trying to do anything useful on it. But, you know, he had these big ideas. He wrote the first book in this field, actually, and then that field kind of grew over time as computers became faster and faster. And I happened to be at the right place at the right time with the right interests to join him in studying some of those things. So I did my bachelor's degree in math at Santa Barbara, finished up in 85, started working with him full time. I ended up getting a PhD in engineering at UC San Diego in 92. And then we formed our own company called Natural Selection Incorporated, which is still around. My brother runs that company now, and I kind of kibitz with him on various projects, and I consult to other companies where I serve as director of research for a financial advising firm, and also work on life science projects for a major corporation, worldwide corporation. But I've had the opportunity in following those footsteps in AI to see AI from when it was like really not a thing, to be honest about it, a lot of hype, but not really a thing, to what it is now, which is also a lot of hype, I have to say, but also it's a thing, it's real, and you can get in your car and it can be self-driving. And you know, I've had the good fortune of not being an academician, meaning not being a professor, but still being able to publish a lot and work within worldwide organizations like the IEEE, which is an engineering organization of more than, I guess, 400,000 people around the world. Serve as a president of their Computational Intelligence Society in the 2008-2009 timeframe. And within that, I had the opportunity to chair a meeting and be a plenary chair, so you get to invite, like, who do you want to be the guest speakers of note? And one of them was a guy, Dr. Sebastian Thrun, who was the lead on the first self-driving car project sponsored by DARPA, right? It was a little contest that they did trying to get cars to navigate around Prim, Nevada, just basically out in the desert, to be fair to it, right? So to go from the mid-2000s, 20 years later, if you have a Tesla, you can put it in self-driving mode and just keep your hands on the wheel, for some sake. I'm not really sure what the sake is. The Tesla doesn't really need you to do it. It's pretty amazing to see all that advancement. And so the other thing to say along those lines is that both my dad and my mom were and are musicians, and my dad played piano and saxophone. And for those viewing, this is my dad's tenor that he left for me, and played clarinet and flute, and he played a few other things too. So I started taking piano when I was 5 from my dad's mom, my grandma. And I started playing saxophone when I was young too. Then I moved on to heavy metal guitar in my teenage years and played some Judas Priest and Scorpions and things like that. But, later on in life, I just lucked into a gig at the Catamaran Hotel in Pacific Beach in 1994. I went in there and the piano was empty, and I just asked if I could play. And the food and beverage manager, Mike Pritchard, was there. And he said, well, Sunday nights are open. Do you want to audition? And that's not what I had in mind at all.
Yeah.
That's not what I had in mind at all. But I said, okay, sure. And I got that gig, and I played there for 16 years, weekly, pretty much once or twice a week for 16 years. That's a long gig. And I still do some gigs now, from time to time, a little party here and there. But along the way on music, I had another epiphany, which is another thing that I think really does dovetail into your theme of freedom and prosperity, which is freedom to think outside the box and try to make the world a better place. So I've been very fortunate in my professional career, as we talked about. But one day, like 7 years ago, I went to the San Diego Symphony on a Sunday afternoon, and I got there a little early, and I'm looking around, and I'm pretty much the youngest person in the audience. There's a lot of people with grayer hair than I have. I don't have that much, but I'm fortunate. But anyway, so I'm 54. I'm looking around. I'm like, where are the young people? And then when I was little, my parents took me to the symphony, and we had field trips to the symphony from school, but not so much anymore. And I got to thinking about, like, what can we do to help bring symphony music to younger people? It doesn't have to be kids, but just younger than me,
Sure.
So, a little bit of thinking and common sense, and we get all of our music now on the phone, and everybody's kind of conditioned to shorter tunes, and they keep getting shorter and shorter, probably because our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. And classical music has not really adapted to that format at all, whereas pop and rock and hip hop and R&B and country, they all have. So no surprise that classical music has like a 1% market share, right? So I came up with an idea. In piano music, classical music, we have things that are sonatas, and then we have sonatinas, which are kind of shorter sonatas. So I said, well, why don't we have something called a symphonina, which is a short symphony. It plays in 10 minutes, with each movement is like the length of a pop tune, Yeah. And so I said, well, no one's going to do this if I don't do it. So I started writing these things, and people liked them. And then I was like, okay, well, can't be about me. It has to be about a team of people and changing the world. So a friend of mine, Gary Gray in Los Angeles, and I created a foundation called the Symphonina Foundation, which is 501c3, IRS approved. Nice. And we help promote symphony music to young people, or younger people. Like I said, if you're 40, you count. So younger people, and it's a holiday time, then it's kids from 1 to 92, as the song goes. But basically, we'd be happy to get anybody to be more interested in symphony music, and we promote contests for new composers and have live performances, live recordings, I should say, and we put out an album each year. And last year we had good fortune of getting #1 on Billboard in the traditional classical album in the last week of August, and charted for 2 weeks. So I think, as we were talking before we got started, in terms of like work-life balance and stuff, it's the music part to me it's work sometimes, but it's definitely an opportunity to do that Maslow hierarchy of needs where you go for self-actualization at the very top, right? And try to become the person you want to be. And that's, for me, it's always a joy to help others. And that's where I find the greatest resonance. So
Well, I appreciate you coming on here because this is going to be a big help. You said a lot there, but I tell you, I was taking a few notes. For those of you guys that are listening in, sometimes the wisdom to us listeners is not always as apparent to the speaker. And I tell you, one of the things that you said was that you were given an opportunity, for example, to play at, I don't remember the place, but
catamaran, yeah.
at the catamaran, yeah, at the
Yeah.
catamaran.
Yeah.
A lot of people would have said no right there. I'm not ready,
That's
you
true.
know. But David saw the opportunity and he said, you know what? What the heck? Let's
That is
just do
pretty much what I was thinking too, because I really wasn't ready. But and I said I didn't go in with that as a mindset. It just sort of happened that way. But yeah, I think when opportunity presents itself, be open to the opportunity.
be open and push through the fear and the nervousness, right? And
Yeah.
just say yes. And David, I've lived my life that way too. I've been presented like you and like most people. There are opportunities that come our ways if we are in tune to them, right? And you just have to basically be able to say yes and be willing to say yes. And most people are so paralyzed with fear or uncertainty or insecurity that they don't always want to step up when they really should. And then they live a life of regret. I should have. I
Yep.
call them a life of I shoulds. Something else you said too, um, about the Symphonina,
Symphonina. Yep.
Symphonina. It's funny. I'm a member of the symphony, right? And I've seen Symphonina. I
Nice.
didn't,
That's great.
yeah.
We're making progress then.
Yeah, you're making progress, but I'm old. See, so I'm 72, so I'm older than you. You're trying to get
All
the other guys.
I
Okay.
know.
But I listen to it. I have the symphony on my radio in my car, so
Nice.
I'm reaching out to the next generation. When I have my grandkids in my car, it's my music. So
Yep.
you guys get to
Yes.
listen too. But one of the things you said is, when you saw when you saw a need in the world, you said, no one else is going to do this, so I think I need to. And
Yep.
and then you took those steps to do it. David, that's huge. That's huge. And that's why I think that you have lived a successful, prosperous life. Because when you give to the world like that, and when you understand that you are here to give and serve, and you provide that, the world rewards you. Too many people today are looking for what's in it for me. I'm sure you see that.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And whether the world rewards you directly or indirectly, it's doing it as a reward for me. When we've been recording other people's music, which is great, by the way. We have
Yeah.
so many nice, great composers these days. You don't
Yes.
always have to play
Yes.
people who lived hundreds of years ago. But anyway, so we were recording with Budapest Scoring Orchestra, which is a great orchestra, and we still record with them. We have 3 recordings with them coming up on our album for this year, which will be out in July. But I had an idea too. We're missing another opportunity when we only record with established orchestras because there are literally tens of thousands of young players who are really good all around the world who are not going to have the opportunity to play with Budapest or Cleveland or the LA
Sure.
Phil or the San Diego Symphony. And so what I decided to do there was, I guess, make another opportunity, which is solicit those people from around the world, literally from around the world, from Ghana, Africa to Australia to Singapore, Vietnam, and also right here in the United States to record parts for these compositions remotely. And then I take them in the digital audio workstation. I use Logic Pro on the Mac, but there are many other versions. That's mine.
Mhm.
And make it sound like they played together. And then we release that. So we have our own Symphonina Orchestra, the International Symphonina Orchestra, which we record at least one on the album that we release each year. And it is a lot of work, I will say, to take all those performances from 40 different people and who recorded separately and make it sound like they all played at the same time in the same place. But I really feel very good about that because about half of those players are young, aspiring professionals, and the other half are elite professionals who've already made it somewhere. We have people like our concert master is Oleg Spoychik, who's the concert master for the Lviv Opera Symphony in Ukraine. The guy was number two on Ukraine's Got Talent, playing 3 violins at one time. I mean, I don't even know how you do that, really. I've seen it on video, and I still don't know how he does it.
You gotta have 3 arms.
No, he only has 2. He's a normal human. Aside, other than that, but just thinking about the opportunity that some young person has from a place that's not going to lead them to Juilliard or to Berkeley or something along those lines, hopefully we're giving them those opportunities to shine and put that on their resume and help them get the next step.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Reaching back and helping out the next generation of artists moving forward. That's excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why you are where you are, man. That's why I got this guy on this call, guys, on this podcast, because he's the kind of guy that you can learn from and that you can just really model. David, now I know that you went and got your doctorate, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
In engineering.
Right.
Why engineering?
Well, good question. So these days, I would say it would have been in artificial intelligence because my research was mostly on machine learning at the time. But they really, in 1992, there really wasn't a PhD in AI. Okay. And I did ask about that. And most of the professors either gave me an answer like, well, what's that? Or who would hire you with that? Right? Because it was too new back then. It wasn't in the mainstream of things, right? So at UCSD, in the engineering department, there were different types of engineering that you could get a PhD in. There's, everything from civil engineering, building things, mechanical, how did they work, aerospace, but there's also something called systems. And systems is basically mathematical models of how different things work. So it doesn't really matter what the thing is. If you can describe it mathematically, then you can do some engineering on it, either to improve it or understand it better or whatever it might be. So that was what I focused on, system science engineering. And it really, within the framework of natural selection and working with my dad and then my brother and some other people along the way, we got to work on a wide range of things, all the way from some military things that I can't talk about to helping the Chicago Cubs figure out who they should put on the field in 2007, to financial things, to factory scheduling and advertising, all sorts of different things. And that's kind of the beauty of that part of engineering, where you're not really designing a building or a levee or an airplane or an arrestor on an aircraft carrier that's going to save the pilot's life when he lands. All those things are great. But as a systems science engineer, you can work on all those things. Yeah. You just don't understand them quite as well, maybe, as the one who's very specific in that area, but you get to be, more of a generalist.
And you understand the skeleton of it and the bones behind it, right? And even some things that may be a little bit outside of the realm of the guy that is designing that doggone thing.
You do get to have an outside view. I think in some ways you're an outsider, and in some ways you're more like a general practitioner in medicine would be, rather than a specialist. You wouldn't, if you're going to really have something that's critical, you probably want that specialist who has the specific knowledge, not just the generalist. But by being a generalist, you can bring a new perspective. And also by being a mathematician, you can bring a different sort of understanding in mathematics than you might just by saying, what do you think about something, or what's your experience? You can describe it in a different language of math.
Yeah, that's what I was speaking to right there. Yeah. The mathematical side of it. That's interesting that you said that the Cubs needed to know who to put on the field. And they used
so Moneyball had just come out like around 2005, as I recall. And we had a connection who got us to Jim Hendry, who was the general manager at the Chicago Cubs at the time. And the Cubs happened to come to San Diego. So I got to go to the box and sit with Jim and tell him a little bit about what we do with neural networks and evolutionary algorithms and AI. And he's not an AI guy, he's a baseball guy, So
right.
We watched the game together, and he was very polite and entertaining to me, but basically said, you got to talk to my data people. So we did that, and they thought we were offering them something valuable because we could do more than what Moneyball could do. Moneyball was basically a linear sort of analysis where everything is the sum of its parts. And so the problem is trying to find the weights for the parts, then add them up. Whereas what we were doing is beyond that, where you could have something be like, say, the product of the parts or the ratio of the parts, or not constrained to be linear anyway. So they hired us, we worked for them, and then the team went up for sale, and so they didn't work with us any further. And then the Ricketts family came in and purchased the team. We ended up doing some things for them. I'm really not sure if I should talk about what we did for them, but I can talk about the player selection for the Cubs. But we also work for some other teams. We work for Indianapolis Colts, helping them figure out how they should rate players in the combine. We did a few other things in professional sports, and it's all fun. It's all good, whether it's life sciences working on computational drug design, or whether it's something in entertainment. I guess professional sports is entertainment.
Sure, yes.
It's again that idea of like, okay, what's going on? How can we describe it mathematically? And then how can we help someone make a better decision?
That's excellent. So, we talked about younger people too, David. And so as we wind things down here now, if you were going to be talking to, let's just say someone, they're getting out of high school now, and maybe they're considering looking at a career path, engineering is on the short list. Okay. Anything that you might want
Absolutely.
to say to that person?
Yeah, I think yes. I think the it's easy to say follow the same footsteps I did, and I think that's a good idea in this case, but probably not because I did it, just because the timing is such that we have very rapidly advancing AI right now. And I think it's difficult really to guess what the most important impacts of AI are going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. So if you commit to a very specific part of engineering or anything in life, being a biologist, being a musician, being an artist, whatever you're committing to, you just have to think a little bit like, what are the prospects that AI is going to make this more challenging for me? And what are the prospects that AI is going to make this wonderful for me? And try to be one of those creatures that is ready to adapt to whatever is thrown at you, because those are the ones that tend to survive, right? The specialists do great until the environment changes, and then
Yeah.
they don't they're like the dinosaurs. They don't do so great when the environment changes. They're great. Dinosaurs were around hundreds of millions of years. They did great until the environment changed on them, right? So
Yeah.
if you want to be as adaptable as you can and keep as many options open, take a wider range of classes if you can, get yourself more familiar with other things that you wouldn't normally. And I think that would probably serve you well as we go into the uncharted technological world that's coming for us.
Yeah. And then the last thing, Dave, since you are of two worlds, literally, what would you say to the aspiring artists and uh, musicians out there, that are kind of thinking, I want to do something there. You've done some pretty amazing things yourself here with this. So what would you say to those guys?
Thank you. Well, the AI threat is there too, and I would call it a threat in the artist world, because it's very easy for artists and musicians to be quote unquote replaced by pushing a button. And so far, pushing that button has not generated work that I would say is at the same caliber as the high quality professional can generate. But there's no reason to think that it won't in time. So I think that's more of a culture shift that we have to think about from the artist perspective. Established artists really probably need to do, and I think we are doing it to some degree, but maybe to a better degree, come together and say, this is a human endeavor for the human spirit, if you want to put it that way, something like that, right? For humanity. And it doesn't serve us to automate it. It serves us to not automate it. So I'd like to see something where, like, if you put out an album or whatever, it has to be marked like H for human, like no AI was used. Like, if you go to the store and you're ordering, you're getting some GMO product, it's labeled GMO, right? So, or at least the nutritional information is there. So you should know what you're getting. And I think as long as there's no market for it, then it'll find its place, and artists and musicians and so forth will find their place too. So we all have to hang together, I guess, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying
So,
on
so
that
you're
one.
concerned that the artists are going down the path of the dinosaur?
Well, to some degree, because that environment is changing. I don't have the specific data in front of me right now, but I do know, I've been told, let me put it that way. I don't know for a fact myself, but I've been told that there's a significant percentage of tunes on Spotify playlists, for example, that are AI generated with no revenue income back to an artist because it was all generated by a software. And you can imagine, like, as we go through AI artwork that we see from OpenAI or wherever it might be, Midjourney, or, you know, some of it's very good and it's great. And there's a certain talent actually to prompting those systems to generate the art that you want. I can't say that there's not. There is some talent to that. But it's also not the same as someone painting you a picture, you know? So I think we just have to try to find the right balance between those things and use the technology appropriately.
Well, that is interesting. I hadn't even thought about that, about the impact of AI on the arts, in particular music and art.
Yeah, within the Grammys, for example, I'm not a voting member yet, but I hope to be this year. We'll see. But we do submit our work for Grammy consideration, and when you do, there's a little box. At least there has been historically, like, was any AI used on this thing? And that's a good start, you know. But I do think it would be better to have things be more required to be in some way more upfront about what that technology use is, and hopefully people would favor the artist, because, like I said, I think the arts is a human endeavor rather than AI endeavor.
Yeah. Well,
at least at this point, until the AI can prove that it appreciates the arts to me. And humanity, for that matter, you know.
Yeah, doesn't even appreciate us, I was going to say.
That's exactly, yeah. Well, we'll find out.
Well, hopefully we won't find out too soon that
that's right.
it doesn't appreciate us.
That's right.
Well, David, thank you so much for today, for this interview. I do appreciate it. This has been great.
My pleasure.
I love this information. Love sharing this with the people that do listen to my podcast, and I'm looking forward to having you guys that are out there. I'm looking forward to you guys sharing this information. Share this with your friends and your family. This is good stuff, as you guys have seen today. This is good stuff. So don't be stingy with it. Put it out there. Put it on your social media. And then those of you that are interested in the arts, maybe even consider, reaching out to Symphonina.
Yeah, you can reach me at email, david.fogel@symphonina.org.
And Fogel is Fogel.
It is.
Yeah, and Symphonina, Symphonina. It's on his shirt there, you guys can see
it. It is.
Right, yeah, for those of you that are watching this podcast, you can see it right there on the shirt. Well, thanks again, David. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time here today.
Totally my pleasure.
Thank you guys for listening and watching. We do appreciate you as well. God bless you all, and I'll see you all on our next episode of the Freedom and Prosperity Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to the Freedom and Prosperity Podcast with Desi Arnaz. Want to share your success story with our audience? Head over to freedomandprosperitypodcast.com/guest and apply to be our next guest.